Hello, my fellow crest-wearing companions, and welcome back to another episode of Extra Time, the U.S. Men's National Team Soccer Podcast. I'm Tim, and the United States men have just completed their first game with Mauricio Pochettino as their coach. It was a victory, a 2-0 win over Panama, the team that we just last played in the Copa America, who basically started this entire cycle. So it's only fitting that they are the reason that we no longer have the head coach that we had in Greg Berhalter and now have the coach that we have in Mauricio Pochettino. So it's really fitting that this becomes his first debut. I think it's a nice statement. But we're going to break that entire game down and talk about anything the United States men did differently, some of the new players that have coming up, who made a big impact and probably earned themselves some more time, and who unfortunately isn't going to make the cut here. All of that is coming up in this episode. Stick around. United States to Panama 0. Now, from the get-go of this game, we have to keep into consideration there were a lot of players that the United States didn't have access to, either because of injuries, either because of surgeries, recoveries, clubs not releasing them. But it really shouldn't matter, right? At this point, with the United States being about 2.5 years out from the 2026 World Cup, we need to be in a position where any team that we play in CONCACAF, we should be able to win handedly with any combination of A players down to probably like B minus players, right? Like a half B team with some C tier team players should be able to get this done. So, yes, it's the United States. Yes, we have that history. Who knows what's going to happen? You're expecting us to walk in and win. We got a lot of things going for us. We got this new coach. You know, lots of teams have these great results after getting a new coach. The players are going to be fired up. And what we saw in the game, which I was really looking forward to and I talked to some of my friends about, was you created an environment where the players had to earn their spots. I don't know what Pochettino has said to any of the players, if anything really at all. I know it's mostly been positive, just trying to talk about how he's excited to be here and we're going to be rebuilding this thing and this is such a big deal and this is, this coach that the United States, wailed all this money on, making a big impact. But you got to earn your spots now, and we saw some big performances from players like Yunus Musa, from players like Matt Turner, from players like Anthony Robinson, who definitely felt like they needed to reestablish their position in this team and felt like maybe that was up for grabs. Weston McKennie had been playing a lot of time, so we were going to see him on the bench. Ricardo Pepi staying on the bench, Haji Wright staying on the bench, Zendeja staying on the bench. And then we saw a lot of players who we have been slowly starting to get mixed in, right, with like the Malik Tillman, Austin Trusty, Ethan Horvath, Brandon Vasquez, and Mark McKenzie, who started, Aiden Morris, who started. Those are all players that we've kind of seen a little bit. Josh Sargent making his kind of push back into this national team era in place of, not having Balogun, the ability for us to play him. So there's a lot of players that we're about to be given this opportunity. Some players who are making their first appearance or very, very early on. Only a handful of appearances, such as Tanner Tessman, Christopher Hansen, Patrick Schulte in goal. So we see a lot of youth and a lot of new players for this team, which is good. We need to take the entire 4-year cycle of preparing for a World Cup and do it in double time, right? So United States starting lineup, the first right off the bat, the formation is different. and it was apparent whether you had looked at the lineup or not. That kickoff happened and you watched the men get into their shape, and you could tell we were deliberately playing with a solo striker. We had moved away from this 3-4-3 or trying to just dominate all these guys in the midfield. We were playing with a lone striker. We were going to use the speed and creativity of Aronson and Pulisic. We were going to be supported by a bunch of players in the midfield. What that looked like tactics-wise was you still saw Robinson making his overlap, but now Robinson is making that overlap on the left-hand side from a midfield position rather than a defensive position. So it gave us the ability to get tight on defense with our three backs coming in more to the center and having Musa drop and Robinson drop. And it also gave us the ability to really overload on offense, where Pulisic could come underneath Sargent or Aronson could come underneath Sargent, depending on which side of the field we were attacking up. And we could get some of those combination plays, which we saw the United States take full advantage of later on in the game. Initially from the back, from the build, it didn't look too different. I was pretty thrilled in those first 10 minutes. Obviously, Panama had a couple opportunities, but the United States had a lot of the play. We were possessing the ball really well, albeit pretty boring. We definitely made it a stance to possess the ball. And if I could tell you what I think, I'll take a guess at what I think the players must have been told based on those first 10, 15 minutes of the game. We're not going to lose the ball, and when we lose it, we're going to get it back fast. We saw a lot more hustling from the men once they had lost the ball with this team effort. It felt a lot like a Spanish side or a Barcelona side to lose the ball and you go win it back. In all areas of the field, no. But from about our half all the way backwards, yes. Anytime the ball was lost in that middle third of the field, especially defensively, we were making an effort to go back and get it. From the build, it really looked kind of the same. The difference was I thought it was a lot slower and a lot more boring. If Panama had put more pressure on us in a high press, I think they could have taken advantage of it, because there were a lot of sloppy moments where we tried to come out of the back, especially when McKenzie played into Morris. That just wasn't a great dynamic. I don't know if I would place a lot of the blame on McKenzie. He's not really high on my list of players that I value, although I know we're really stretched out thin in the center defensive back position, especially with Tim Reed getting older. I mean, you go down and look at the rest of the players we have. So we have Miles Robinson as somebody we're thinking about, like you're trying to get him back into form so that he can play. And then outside of that, Chris Richards maybe, but he's seeing a little bit more of a central defensive midfielder spot. But anyway, I digress. Morris just could not find any particular rhythm, couldn't find his groove. There was a number of times, and I wish I had counted, because after about the second or third time he did it, I told myself I'm really going to regret not counting the number of times that he's done this, where the ball would come to him and we'd be moving forward. We would be in this like attacking mode coming up the field, and you could see, he's facing down towards the camera. You could see that out up the field to his right, there's no one. He doesn't have any pressure, and he could turn the ball and attack. And in like panic mode, without thinking, he just knocks the ball backwards to his defenders. Like first time instinctual. He's not listening for anybody. It's just boom, this is what I'm doing. And it was so frustrating, because between that and the number of times that he dummied, there was a couple times where he dummied the ball. One time I felt like he did it because it was his move. He let the ball pass him, and then he turned around to go get it. The ball had too much pace and he lost it. The other time, he just dummied it. He just stepped over the ball and started making a run to the corner, and it went to 3 Panama players. So just really struggling with his awareness on the field of where his teammates were, and just getting a general feel for that position. I will say that it did feel like the way that our formation kind of molded out as we were applying the tactics to it, as we were trying to move the ball around, Morris found himself more directly central and was dropping into like that Tyler Adams spot. So it really felt like either this is just something he happened to try out and the players kind of gave it to him, or Pochettino really thought that he could be the player that could take this step and take this role, and maybe Pochettino sees something in him. I don't see anything in him, and he was one of the players that I thought really just should have gotten subbed off first. I know I'm a lot harder on the players. I'm very critical of our guys, probably more critical than I need to be. He was a player that just didn't wow me. He hasn't wowed me before. And typically, my like go-to gut thing is if I feel this way and I also hear the announcers talking these players up, it's probably a good sign that I feel like I might be in the right here, because Aiden Morris was a player who the announcer said he's been really doing things great. He's kind of coming into his own. He's coming along, and he just really didn't have it. I thought Scally did fine on the right, and I thought Ream was Ream. Honestly, maybe a little disappointing given that like you're expecting him to be this kind of solid back. He didn't have the speed, and it showed. I think Panama could have taken advantage of that a lot more, and they just didn't. They had the opportunity to play a couple balls in over the top, and when they did, Ream just got torched, but they really couldn't find that enough outside of maybe trying to force it and hitting balls back up over the back. Yunus Musa, Buzio, and Robinson, out of them, I thought Buzio was fine. He didn't do anything that wowed me. He didn't do anything that was disappointing. He had a couple great tackles in the midfield, especially when Panama was transitioning to offense that just completely shut the play down. He really felt like a player that had bought in and was successful in Pochettino's let's go get the ball back. There's a lot of times where the United States lost the ball. Buzio had a lot of hustle going back to get it, winning the ball, and allowing the United States to go back into an offensive transition. Yunus Musa used a lot on that right-hand side, drifting all the way in, as we saw in his goal, staying out wide, playing overlaps to Scally. We didn't get a lot of stuff going up on that right-hand side because most of it played through Robinson, but again, it was nice to see Yunus Musa taking steps towards being back, especially playing in a very different position and role than we're used to seeing him from that MMA style. That brings me to Robinson. I thought Robinson had a very good game, even though I was very critical of him in the conversations I was having with friends while the game was happening. We went through Robinson a ton, and there was a lot of benefit to it, including the goal, and there was a reason that we were doing that. My criticism of Robinson is when he sees chances like that, and he sees that many touches, he's got to be just a hair better. Like 5% at least more quality in his game. It's not many games you're going to get that many chances and that many opportunities. Most of the higher quality teams we play, maybe he'll get 3 or 4 balls to him at most, and he'll have the opportunity to try to swing, all of those in, maybe getting 1 or 2 of those into the box. They got to be quality. I felt like in this game he had closer to 10 opportunities down and was able to swing most of them into the box, which was good. It generated a lot of chances. But early on, there were a lot of opportunities between him and Pulisic with Sargent in the middle, Buzio trailing Aronson up in there, and it just felt like we really couldn't connect. But between our buildup, which felt the same, and the way the midfield carried the ball, which felt about the same, one of the things I did notice was our final third. Now, our final third could have simply just been different because our shape was different, and that's fine. You're going to get that. But it seems like Pochettino has been able to make an immediate impact on the players with their ability to generate opportunities in the final third. In the Greg Berhalter era, when we would build the ball up, when we would knock the ball out to Robinson or knock the ball out to Weah, it felt like they would get to the corner, and if they could turn their defender and beat them to the end line, we'd get a ball in the box. But if they couldn't, then you'd just see 4 or 5 USA guys all standing there, kind of looking around at each other and just knocking the ball around on the sideline before eventually going all the way back to Richards, Ream, central defenders, and then trying to build the ball out to the side, and then it got really stale. In these games, in these moments, there were a lot more flat balls through the back, and we were taking the opportunity to swing the ball into the box, basically regardless of what the situation was. We saw that in the buildup with Robinson. Robinson goes out wide, he knocks the ball back inside, and immediately it's just, I'm going to play Pulisic through. And so we knock Pulisic through, and he gets to the end line before his guy. Yunus Musa makes a great run, getting goal side of his defender. Christian just plays the ball through. Yunus Musa just directs it on goal, and it goes in. Those are the opportunities that I feel like the United States has had so many of, and it just hasn't mattered. So the United States has had so many opportunities to do all of these things in the past, previous to this moment. These were the types of chances that we would generate. And it would be to no avail because we just couldn't get the ball from the wings into a dangerous opportunity inside the 6-yard box, inside the penalty box. But in this game, just like Musa's goal and with Pepe's goal, we saw the ability to capture down the wing, get behind the defenders, and then play a dangerous ball into the box and capitalize. When the balls go down into the wing and you play the ball down into the box, you need the defenders to be facing their own goal. Those balls are dangerous balls. The defenders have to try to clear the ball back out into a corner kick or make a very dangerous attempt to clear the ball back behind them. It's almost impossible, right? This is very difficult. So from a basic fundamental soccer perspective, we need to make sure that those balls are getting past the last man. And previous to this, it was we're just going to try to, either have way of speed beat them or Ream's going to hit these big balls over the top and we're just going to kind of, cross our fingers and hope. There were a lot of flat balls. We saw Aronson get put through on a break. Musa got put through on a break. Pulisic almost got put through on a break. Sargent almost got put through on a break. Sargent had a great strike too. An absolutely great strike. So we saw shots that were going on goal from areas that we previously hadn't been, and I felt like we generated more chances. Right? We were outshot, but we had more shots on target. Possession was close to the same. The accuracy was about the same. So from a general stats line of the game, we really didn't look much different than Panama. And I really felt like you saw that in the second half. But again, if you just took the first half stats and imagine that the United States doesn't take their foot off the gas going into the second half, I think you still see the shift. I think you see like a 60-30 game in possession, and Panama loses a lot of their shots and chances because we really went, okay, we have that goal. Let's use up our subs. Let's rest some of our players because we want to play against Mexico. We have a lot of other guys that we want to get opportunities to come in, and we want to see what they can do. And credit where credit's due, we played all the way through the 94 minutes. Ricardo Pepi scoring in the 94th minute. To me, Ricardo Pepi has earned his opportunity to start. I had thought he had earned a starting opportunity beforehand. And my disclaimer here is I think he's close to being even with Balogun. I think from a stats perspective, he probably earns it over Balogun, but Balogun has a couple chances and some goals that really have that wow factor. Pepi has shown that he is now consistent across the board. He will score strikers' goals. He will score the obvious goals and some of the slightly less obvious goals. Sargent hasn't been able to do that. Haji Wright hasn't been able to do that. Brandon Vasquez hasn't been able to do that. He's above all of those guys. That just leaves Flair and Balogun. He's got more opportunities and goals than Balogun. Is it that he gets himself into a better position? Is it because he's coming on as a sub and the other teams are tired and they're exhausted? We saw this with Giovanni Reyna when Reyna was coming in off the bench for Borussia Dortmund. And we're all up in arms because we want this guy to start. And some of the commentators were saying, well, what if the reason he's so successful is because he's coming off the bench? What happens if he plays the whole game? And for a little while, the United States, we saw that. It's only been recently that Reyna has been able to find his own and come into a real starting position and just create a lot of dangerous opportunities. Tons of dangerous opportunities. Players that I thought earned an opportunity to see additional playing time, I felt like Aronson did, and he's kind of been wishy-washy for me. I thought Buzio did. Those are players that I definitely would like to see more, and I would like to see Mark McKenzie now against a more dangerous Mexico side. If the only strikers we have are Josh Sargent and Ricardo Pepi, I would switch them. Let's see what happens if Pepi gets the start against a more experienced Mexico side and see what Sargent can do when he comes in. And then maybe try to mix up our midfield a little bit, right? You're probably going to see Aiden Morris start again. I think Aiden Morris is going to get taken advantage of a little bit more, and I think Ream not having the speed is going to hurt. So I could see us switching to a Joe Scally, Tim Ream, Anthony Robinson, and then giving us a completely different left winger. I don't think you can necessarily try Zendejas out there, but maybe we see Miles Robinson make a start, and we see Tim Ream get rested, and we just see what we can have some of these younger players do. Overall, it was nice to get a win. It was nice to watch the United States get this victory and have it in a position where, it was earned. Matt Turner had some phenomenal saves in this game. This is the Matt Turner we're used to seeing. This is the Matt Turner of old. This is the Matt Turner that we're used to and we get excited about. This felt like an inflection point for the United States to be able to say, okay, we got rid of our old coach. We got a new coach. We're taking a deep breath. We're going to reset. We're all going to get back together and we're going to say, okay, who are we? What are we about? And can we get everybody back on the train? Right? The United States, you think about that Dr. Pepper commercial. The United States has been riding the hype train. And then all of a sudden, COPA America comes along and there it goes. Hype train's off the rails. And it was so easy. Think about how long it's been since I've even been here doing one of these. We've had other friendlies. We've had opportunities for me to make episodes, but it was interim coaches. It's nonsense. It's an international breaks for other sets of qualifying. I'm not interested in that. I was interested in getting serious. The United States has this coach. Let's see if we can get serious now. I do believe that this game looked like an inflection point. It looked like the turning point for the United States. We saw a lot of effort in these players. We saw a lot of work in these players. Guys trying to earn their spots. Now, it's going to be really easy to sit here and tear this entire game apart, right? Just kind of like I did with Aiden Morris. So you're going to hear me say this and you're going to be like, what are you talking? You pick at this, pick at this. Yeah, you could pick at a lot of different things. When you put players in a position where they need to earn their spots, they take risks, and risks lead to mistakes. You get exposed. But risks also lead to goals. I think the first goal that we had was because players took risks. Those were tight passes in tight spaces, but they stuck to the plan. They believed in themselves. This is the time to get that out of your system. This is the time for those players to take risks, to make those passes, to take those opportunities and chances, and try to earn themselves a spot on this team. There are a lot of players over this next year who are going to be trying to earn themselves a spot on the starting roster, okay? And we are, it's October, and you're looking at June of next year, right? You're running out of time. You're running out of time. June of 2025, the rosters typically get named, I want to say 6 months out is when it was. So you're approaching your final year. These players are approaching their final year. You're going to see a window in November. You might get a January, February one. You'll get an April one, and then you'll get another summer tournament. Pochettino, they said, had 20 games with the United States before the World Cup comes. Does that mean these players have 10 to 15 to prove themselves? You think about that from a pressure stance. We can breathe now. The United States loses this game to Panama. I don't know how excited we get for this World Cup. We can breathe knowing we're back on the right track. We can breathe knowing we're heading in the right direction. Some of these players might only have 10 games. And these might be some of the 10 most exciting games to watch for the United States. Because every single player is going to be giving it their all to try to earn themselves a spot on this team. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited for it. And on the next episode, I'm going to try to remember my little slogan and say as we head into extra time, because I didn't do that. I got to write these things down so that I can be better about that. Anyway, was it the 16th? Tuesday, the 15th. 2 more days. 10:30 p.m., the United States is going to take on Mexico in a friendly. While the rest of the world is taking care of their qualifying, the United States is trying to get another win against its rival, Mexico. It's been a long time. We're hoping to stay there. We're hoping to get Pochettino his second win and see how many we can go in his unbeaten streak. Let's hope it's more than one. All of that is coming up on Tuesday. Let's go USA. I believe that we will win. I'll see you guys then.